Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me I have some more RPG horror stories. You know what one TTRPG I sorely want to try? The Final Fantasy Online TTRPG. It's a very niche thing, completely niche thing, and no way do I think it's something that's gonna blow up or anything, but I so badly want to try. I was looking online to see if I could install it onto Foundry. Maybe somebody created like a homebrew system or their own like modules and the system and stuff just to try it out, and apparently nobody has. There's like a modification for a Pathfinder system that somebody created, but I don't know how to work that. But I really want to try it, not because I'm a huge fan of Final Fantasy XIV, the greatest MMORPG of all time, totally not biased or anything, but I mean, I don't know, just a new experience, new TTRPG in general. If you want to check it out for yourself, it's the Final Fantasy Online TTRPG. You can Google it for yourself. It's real cool, it's kind of neat, very strange mechanics, but kind of neat at the same time. Maybe I'll do a video on it, maybe we'll stream it, I don't know. Either way, for now I'm gonna get some RPG horror stories for today. Barbarian versus the party. Alright, so this is a fairly long one. Myself and a few friends from Discord were invited to play a homebrew D&D campaign. Sounded fun. To fill out the party, I invited an outside friend with permissions from the rest of the group. We did have a session 0 and it seemed to go well. It seemed to be a decent composition. Druid, monk, rogue, sorcerer, artificer, and barbarian. From the off, the party had a bit of an issue gelling. Monk and rogue were married in game and IRL and had trauma and no backstory, and it made them cautious of others. High elves and drow in this world had a ton of bad blood, so the druid hated the sorcerer. The artificer didn't want to be there at all, and the barbarian expected everyone to be besties right off the bat. Whoa, it sounds like you guys didn't talk about your dynamic during session 0. Or maybe you did, and that's just what's going on, but still, I feel like even if your characters have a mistrust of others, you as players should still be agreed to like, okay, yeah, our characters have mistrust of others, but we'll work well with the party, even though we'll act like we don't want to work well, we don't trust it. Like actual players actually, playing regularly and trusting them, they're just role-playing as if they don't trust them and stuff like that. Because otherwise, it's going to be a big mesh of people not wanting to be there, right? Because like one player just dislikes the other because drow and high elf and stuff, and then artificer just doesn't want to be there, and then barbarian wants everybody just get along, be a happy family and stuff. I feel like it's either a recipe for disaster or it's sitcom level like interactions, which could be good or bad in both ways, honestly. Went through some questing, and over the time the druid and sorcerer got over the beef and became friends. The monk and rogue integrated into the party, and even the artificer managed to make friends with the rogue, but the barbarian, my god, the barbarian, never managed to fit in. There's several reasons for this. 1. In one dungeon, he, as playing a woman, got injured, so she ran off to the start of the dungeon and sat there crying. He was later angry at all of us for not comforting him. We told him that, nah, we have a new party, why would we care already? The sorcerer in particular was curious as to what happened, and the barbarian insisted that what women did when they were upset about anything in life. Cue many people take it offense. Wait, so you think you, since you're playing as a female character, a woman barbarian, you think anytime a woman does anything in life when she gets hurt is run away and cry? I mean, that's, blatantly a sexist statement, but also the audacity just to say out loud, well, anytime a woman gets hurt, they just run away and cry. What? You just want to say that out loud like that? What? Not only is that a really fucked up way to look at a woman, but also to act like that as a player character. Well, my character got hurt, and because she's a woman, she has to run. No, you don't have to. You can just stay in there and just be like, oh, the little boo-boo here, I'll just short rest or bandage, I'll be fine. Why? That just create a problem for everybody else if you just run away from everything every time you get hurt. 2. During game, he get brilliant ideas for his backstory. No, he didn't write one beforehand, and he didn't go ahead and talk to the DM during downtime outside of game. Instead, in the middle of the game, he'd be bombarding our DM with messages of what he wanted to have in his backstory, and where he wanted his character to go into the future. DM mostly ignored him because, he was running a game, and that upset him too. If you want your DM to look at your backstory, write it down later and let your DM read it after the session, not in the middle of the session. Come on. Anytime he and character decided to do something the party didn't agree with, he'd throw a fit. That was usually something that would break out stealth while hiding, breaking laws when you were laying low, and the like. 4. As I said, the druid and sorcerer became friends. This was started by the party agreeing to go into the Underdark to save the druid's former lover. Druid woke up after a long rest in the cave to find that sorcerer had gathered some bioluminescent mushrooms to create nail polish and had painted her nails. She was rather touched by that little bit of care. The nail polish would later become a running gag and persuasion technique for enemies. Barbarian, however, asked how it worked, where it came from. In character, we responded mushrooms, and we don't know how it works. Even made nature rolls so that it was nice and legit. No, not acceptable. We timed it. For 28 minutes, he ranted or raved and argued because he wanted us to go out of game break down the exact chemistry and mechanics of a bottle of nail polish. Why? Why are we spending time doing this? Why? Why are you asking this? Why does it matter? 5. We eventually made it to the major drow city. This is where we find out the druid is an escaped princess and they will have to infiltrate her mother's castle to rescue their man. The plan was simple. Disguise the druid and the rest pose as slaves to get them into the gate. Everyone agreed except Barbarian. He instead tried to square off with the gate guards. Thinking quickly, the druid slapped him across the face and spat orders at him. He gave her advantage on her checks to get through the gate. Once inside, she apologized as such things were not her nature. Barbarian went on a rant about how he was going to attack the druid after the quest in retaliation. You know, this probably would have been a red flag and a perfect time to say, hey, Barbarian, if you do that, you're out of the game. You just be a disruption. Or yeah, hey, maybe just at that point, just put your foot down and say, listen, we had enough of you. Get the hell out of here. 6. Barbarian didn't have dark vision. While the druid could have the spell to fix that, she didn't have it prepared. She was newer to 5e and didn't even know it was an option. Another massive argument later, he still doesn't understand that telling the druid to swap out her spells mid-game outside of arrest and telling her how to properly play a druid was not acceptable behavior. Druid almost dropped the campaign after that. If somebody wants to provide you with dark vision because they have spellcasting, that's completely fine, but don't berate them over it. You can be like, hey, can somebody have dark vision prepared? I'm literally can't even cast that. I can't see whatsoever over here. That's one thing, but telling people how to play their character? F you. 7. This is the big one. The everything enter. Monk, rogue, and barbarian live close to each other, so they started to hang out. I will not go into detail out of respect for privacy, not barbarians, but there was an incident. He was booted from the group immediately and blocked. Monk and rogue were furious. DM was murderous. Sorcerer, druid, and artificer were getting information from so many sides that were confused as to what actually happened. The fallout lasted about a year, but in the end, barbarian is out, artificer also out for bad behavior. The rest are friends and rogue is in some therapy. Therapy? What did Barbarian do? Actually, you know what? Maybe it's best we don't know, just in case. I was thinking it was gonna be like, maybe you stole some underwear and they got caught doing that, or sniffing someone's butt print or something. You know, something really weird. Like, they obviously would shake up a friendship. Edit, it was specifically requested that I leave the incident out by the monk. But guys, it's a misogynist who doesn't respect women on their autonomy who was around rogue. Y'all can do the math, okay? Yep, I was thinking that too. I mean, really unfortunate. I hope that Rogue and Monk are okay after this, and I wish them the best with therapy and everything. But yeah, that's a lot to take in already, but oh my god. I feel like this is a problem play that should have been booted early on, because, well, they're showing a red flag behavior, not only the whole misogyny thing, which is completely unwarranted out of nowhere, but just becoming a problem continuously over and over, not playing well with the party, and it just never got better. It only got worse and worse and worse. Could it be in some positive moments there? Probably, sure. Maybe they had a little bit of fun. In fact, maybe there was kind of fun to play with Barbarian at some point, at some extent. But for the most part, I feel like they should just remove them as a player after the whole gate incident. The whole trying to sneak into the Drow city past the guard thing, because I feel like it was just bubbling up. It was just bubbling up and bubbling up and bubbling up, and just, it's unfortunate that it had to happen out of game like this, but yeah, it's terrible. It's honestly terrible. Good riddance though. Barbarian sounds like a complete dickhead. Let's get to the next story for today. Your backstories make no sense. Let me show you how to make a proper one. 1. This story had happened around 2 years ago, so it's pretty blurry in my head. 2. English is not my first language, so I asked to highlight any drastic mistakes in the end. Here comes the story. By the time I began, we were several months into a friend's homebrew campaign, and I was beginning to feel that character I played turned out not so great for roleplay, and I started to wish for something new. That's when the LGS nearby had posted an announcement where some, it seemed, experienced DM was gathering a party of 4 players for Something is Rotten in the City-State of Denmarsh one-shot. Great, I thought. Not only would I get to try a new character, but a new DM would also be a refreshing experience. The only problem at the moment was that due to Tasha's call to not being among the allowed books, I had to change my concept for a character. But it was not that big of a problem, and in an hour my character was ready, so I could go to the game. Speaking of what, not only I could go, but I had to, as the game was starting in about an hour or 2, and I didn't want to be late. I don't remember the fact that the game was announced just 3 hours before it was supposed to be played bothered me back then, but refreshing it now, I'm surprised that I actually agreed. So literally the game is announced 3 hours before you are supposed to play, just online I guess, or at the store, and just whip up a character. Well, that is some breakneck speed to be able to put something like that together. Seriously, kudos on you. I don't know so much about the DM or this game in particular, but I guess we'll see. So by 5 p.m, I come with my character ready. There was nobody at the table or nearby, and asked the DM if the game was happening, on which he replied that he didn't find more players but was going anyway. It was a little weird, but I waited anyway. So 30 minutes later, the DM comes, no one else is in sight. We for some reason decide to wait, and he asked me of my character. So his name is Rudolph. He's a gnome rogue who's really into disguise and using more and more elaborate ways to steal something. So Robbie the Rotten meets Arsene Lupin. Why would he do it? Pickpocketing's simple and don't need any elaborate schemes. You just come to someone, greet them as an old friend and say you were mistaken, but cut his bag and steal the treasure. Then repeat. There's no need for scheming or disguises, plain and simple. Well, for Rudolph, stealing is an art, so he would not do the same thing repeatedly. It's just not his style. Well, it doesn't really make sense, but I'll skip it. Does he have a backstory? Well, it's a one-shot, so I didn't really think it through, just the basic concept. Every character needs a good backstory. Let's say he comes from a mining town. That's why he is Rudolph. Basically a translatable pun. That wouldn't explain why he's a rogue, but still. Oh, I have an idea. So he was a miner, and after years of being underpaid, he made his first scheme and stole all the fortune for his boss. What? That makes no sense. You can't be underpaid in a mine. The conditions are terrible and you're paid a lot. I don't know, if you live in a really crappy part of town, I could see how you could be working in the mine and just be underpaid, but that's the only place that I'm gonna hire anybody. Maybe I don't know, you're a refugee from a different town that burned down from a raider attack or a dragon attack. Now I come to this town that's overpopulated. There's no jobs to be found. You either do illegal stuff or you work in a mine that's always want to get people in. And because there's so many workers that decide to lax their regulations and requirements, and now anybody can work, but they don't have dental, they don't have good payment, and you get what you get, basically. You get paid a copper or a thing you find, copper or coal or whatever. You just need to mine a lot, and a lot of people get injured. That could be a decent backstory that I can think of, but that's just literally off the cuff, off the top of my head. I mean, I don't know, it's up to the player. It's weird to come up with such an elaborate backstory for a one-shot, you know? If it matters, yes, if you had some planning, sure. But this is a game that was posted 3 hours before it's supposed to be playing, and the player just whipped something up together just with a one-shot. That's all it is. Well, the owner could be taking all the profit. No, that would be stupid. Is this the first time you play? No, I'm actually playing a campaign, and my current character is a fighter who's hunting monsters, and it's a family tradition. But he has left his village because a monster has killed his cousin. That also makes no sense. Why would he do that? Let me show you how to make a good backstory. Okay. In a good backstory, you need to explain everything about your character. So, let's take your concept. We'll have a fighter whose father was a fighter. That explains where he had got his sword from. And whose mother was an herbalist. That's how he knows about magic. So he came of age. He decided he wanted to be an adventurer. Took his father's sword, said goodbye to his parents, and started traveling. Plain and simple. That kind of takes away the whole point about wanting to slay monsters and have his cousin be killed by a monster, give him motivation about wanting to travel and get monsters specifically. That completely takes everything away. That just flushes down. Basically, it's like, your backstory is terrible. Let me flush it down the toilet. And here, a simplified backstory. Your father was a fighter. That's how you became a fighter. Your mother was an herbalist. You learned about magic and this excitement, this fervor of adventure. Did you want to become an adventurer? It just completely overrides the entire backstory. The guy's like, my backstories are so much better than everybody else's. Okay, cool. But this guy's story is also pretty good as well. Besides, it's a different campaign run by different DM. They're cool with that backstory. That's fine completely. Your feedback is entirely unwarranted. One-shot DM. The superior story was so generic I chuckled. We talked for some more time, and as no more people were coming, the DM decided it was time to leave. We said goodbye to each other and I went home. Afterwards, our DM, who is my friend, and I laughed about this whole situation. And several months after, the trickster gnome rogue, the concept that supposedly made no sense, was introduced to our campaign, and up to this day, I consider him my favorite character I've played so far. Good on you. Good on you for not being discouraged by this rando out of nowhere, just giving unsolicited feedback for no reason for one shot that's supposed to be happening in 3 hours after the post. That's just a weird thing to do completely. Like, not everybody's gonna be checking any kind of online post or anything like that. The fact that you even went out of your way just to join for this is just, I mean, crazy, but also admirable, because you're just really excited. You just really have a hankering for D&D. I have a hankering for D&D too, dude. Oh my god, I really want to just run something, just anything at all. I've been so busy with the whole like adjusting my lifestyle and everything with like with all my health related stuff that I just been craving D&D so badly. So like, if I was in your place, yeah, I probably want to just whip up something up quick if I just really wanted to play. But in this situation, I don't think it's worth it with this guy. This guy clearly thinks his backstory writing is so much better than everybody else's. So, you know, he could just go play with himself, non-sexually. The fastest I've lost a new player. For context, one of my online friends has siblings that likes to play. They got my contact info, we started messaging. I mentioned I had a 3.5 game going on. They asked if I had an opening. I said that I could fit them in if they wanted to play. So one morning we have this text exchange. I haven't heard from them since. My friend just got done telling me that they're not going to play. I'm still interested in joining the game if you still have an opening. Sure thing. Do you still have all your other context info? I just want to make sure that I review everything via email before letting you in. Game is already established, if you have to bear with me. Yes, I believe I do. So let's talk about your character concept. What are you thinking? Check your email. I just sent you my character sheet plus my backstory, lol. Oh, thank you for sending me this. But there are a few things going on here. My setting is not the same as Critical Role. Your backstory is 10 pages long and relies heavily on lore I'm not using. The party is already level 13, and if you remember when you asked to play, I said we are playing 3.5, and this is a 5e character sheet. If you like, we can take your basic concept and work with it. I'll just give you a lore rundown if you're still interested. Biggest thing to tweak would be pretty much the background and lore and how it relates to the setting, but the rest of it looks pretty good. You can even use those stats, and I don't think alignment will conflict with anybody in the party. So we got a player that basically is probably a major fan of Critical Role, since they include a lot of stuff from Critical Role into the backstory and the character, thinking they're playing a 5e edition of D&D, not realizing probably that they're different editions, but they're so fixated on making a Critical Role character instead of a D&D character. But we got this DM here that basically is like, yeah, no, it's okay, we can rework some stuff. It's not the same universe, it's not the same concept, but you can still work with this character, keep the same stats, we'll just, you know, kind of remake it. They're being very flexible, and they want to be very adaptive to this new player that maybe don't know that there's different editions of D&D and even older editions that people still play, because after all, 3.5 is still being played out there. I mean, I even heard that first edition is still being played out there. Not popular, probably. Also, I don't know why I got angry for that. It just wrong emote, sorry. It's still, either way, people can still play different editions, just like people can play Pathfinder 1e and Pathfinder 2e and everything else. And in this situation, it was actually very adamant of you, the DM, to be very accommodating and say, we can adjust some things, it's okay. But it's also kind of still funny to me that the player probably received that and just probably ghosted you completely, just entirely, just completely. I am sorry that happened, and clearly they're looking for a specific type of game and thought D&D was one thing, but they see in Critical Role, but not what they experience. At the end of the day, I guess it is still an important lesson to continue to reiterate, although I know like Critical Role is probably going to be moved away from D&D, that what you see in Critical Role is not going to be every other D&D game, right? It's just Critical Role. Critical Role is a show at the end of the day. It's there to entertain, as voice actors. It has a lot of voice actors. The main DM is even a voice actor, Matt Mercer. They've done a lot of roles, and they're entertainers. They're friends that play D&D, but they're entertainers above all else. It is a show that is broadcasted and shared with others to watch for the entertainment value, and they're going in there kind of like basically content creators to entertain. They know they're going to be watched. They're going to be doing some wacky things in order to make it entertaining and extra funny and extra quirky while still playing the game and enjoying themselves, but they're not going in there to play the character they always wanted to play. They're going in to play a character for entertainment for a show. Still playing D&D, and it's still technically D&D, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's all D&D anyway, but what people see on Critical Role is not going to be always what they're going to experience playing D&D, no matter which edition you play, or really any TTRPG. D&D is what you make it. TTRPGs in general is what you make it at the table. It's the experience currently with your friends at the table in the current moment, with your own characters, your own lore, your own world, your own dynamic, your own stuff, and everyone's D&D is going to be different. Trying to make D&D like somebody else's D&D is just, you're going to crash and burn. There've been so many stories we've had where somebody tries to replicate the world of Critical Role, like try to replicate the whole world of Critical Lore and characters and everything, and usually becomes a really crappy fan fiction. It just never goes right. Make your own story, make your own game, make your own thing, and try to replicate what you see somewhere online. Anyway, there's a lot of short stories back to back. I don't mean to have them be so short. Maybe they just feel short to me. I don't know. I feel like I'm just flying through them, but we're gonna go ahead and just end it on this little story here. Not much of a big crazy story, but I think it's fine. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.